GM everyone, this is Naruto, the year-end host for Avail Hot Takes. Today we have Dan from Avail team, and then we have Josh from Lens team. And we're just gonna deep dive into the whole on-chain social for users and devs and building with Lens. So just to start off, Josh and Dan, can you introduce yourself and what do you guys do at your respective orgs?
Yeah, sure. I'm Josh, VP of Engineering here at Lens at Avara. We're building on-chain decentralized social.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dan, head of product at Avail. And very excited to be here.
Okay. Everyone knows a little bit background about Avail, a little bit about Lens, all these different things. I wanted to understand from both of your perspective. So Josh, what is the latest with Lens ever since you guys moved to ZK stack? How are things looking? How does the community look like? What are your general thoughts right now? And then Dan, I'll move to you, but yeah, Josh, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, we're heads down building the new network. And also with that, we're building a new protocol, which is going to be Lens V3. We're really on the last stages now for the protocol. We've really rethought about how the protocol can work on the ZK stack. We're very, very excited to showcase it. The good thing about is, being able to build from the network side is we actually get to solve a lot of the low level stuff. For example, quick indexing, optimistically applying state when you're doing transactions, so it feels instant. So we're super excited to see how we can push the kind of social on-chain social further with what we're building here on the ZK stack itself.
So moving to you, Dan, and just want to first ask you about these things as well, and then I'll follow up with both of you about the whole ZK stack slash Lens and Avail. But yes, Dan, please, can you also explain a little bit about Avail's ecosystem? At this point, I think a lot of people know about us, but how do you think or envision the unification that we're building?
Yeah, of course. For anyone who doesn't quite know what Avail does, Avail is an infrastructure solution to unify Web3, and there's three main parts to what we offer. First, we have a DA base layer that offers expandable block space that chains can use to grow their own chains. And we have a interoperability layer called Nexus that is coming soon. And we have a multi-asset staking product called Fusion that is also in the works. And the general status is that we launched our mainnet a little earlier this year. And that's been rock solid. I think it was a great launch, but we're still full steam ahead, both making further enhancements to the base chain, as well as working on Nexus and Fusion. And I think it's the combination of all three of these things that allows us to provide this unified infrastructure layer for all of Web3 to be connected. So yeah, super excited to talk a little bit about how Lens will build on top of this infrastructure and be connected.
Yeah, so that's what my follow-up question was supposed to be, to you and Josh. Um, we both know ecosystems well. Lens has been here for a long time. Really, very exciting work. I think I've been following Lens ever since. I think it's been 2.5 years, probably a little bit more. And I used to be in those Telegram chats with. I've talked to probably Josh a few times as well. differently on how to build on Lens. So just wanted to understand more about like how does it changes or how does the Lens and Avail partnership affect the end users, the devs, and then how does it scale their experience? Like what is the main thing that people should be excited about, or how does it solve any kind of problem or issues that Lens may face? um, Josh, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, Avail, from the user's point of view, it allows you to scale a lot more, and it's a lot cheaper than Ethereum DA, and it has more static fees. So it allows the chain to be more usable, users to use it without delays, and pay less transaction fees. The flip flop side of what they actually also inherit without realizing is that by default, Lens is a Validium, which means by default, DA is itself, meaning you have to trust it. With using Avail itself, it enhances the data availability guarantees to be somewhere else. So it ensures certain data is reliable, can be accessed outside of the network to be able to prove certain things have happened. Obviously, with that removes risk of withholding any data from the Validium itself. And obviously, because Avail is decentralized, built in by nature, not having that one trust factor is huge for that user as well. But from the UI side, scale and transaction fees really.
Interesting take. So Dan, like this is more of a question for you as well because you have worked with Avail DA uh, for a long time. You've been there with us for a long time. So I wanted to understand, as Josh said about the Validiums. Can you explain number one, what is Validium, and then also like, of course I know, but like I want the general audience to also understand how it works out, and then with that, how does it work out in your vision with the whole Avail DA and Validium of Lens?
Yeah, sure thing. And yeah, it can be hard to keep track of all of these very opaque technical terms sometimes, like Validium. I remember the first time I heard about it, my brain I think did a little bit of a flip. Um, but I, a Validium. So if you think of a roll up, like a standard, bog standard Ethereum roll up, it is taking computation off chain. So the computation doesn't happen on Ethereum itself; it happens on the rollup, and then the rollup is then posting these updates to Ethereum. There's a few different ways that it can do that, but essentially it's posting its state updates or transaction list of transactions, so that they can be verified, and that the verification contracts on the L1 can make sure that the rollup is executing correctly. Um, the thing is, it turns out that scaling just computation, just taking computation out of a monolithic chain is not enough um, to make the system scalable. And the reason is that monolithic chains are not designed to grow their block space, and so you just have a new bottleneck. So it's true that rollups scale computation because the computation happens off chain, but they're still bottlenecked on the fact that they have to post their transaction data or state diffs to the L1 to Ethereum, and that's a limited amount of space. And so there's a few different techniques for what can be done about that. But one of the main techniques is to not post the data, right? To post the data somewhere else, to make it available outside of the L1. And so that can take different forms. Um, but at that point, the rollup is no longer a rollup. It's no longer rolling up into the L1. It is posting that data somewhere else. So it can still be anchored to Ethereum, and you still want it to be verified on Ethereum in some way. And so what DA layers do, and a DA layer like Avail does, is we allow the chain um, to post the data to Avail, And Avail has two things that are very important for the verification to happen on Ethereum. So one is that Avail has a large and diverse validator set. Um, and two is that we have a very high quality bridge. It's a ZK bridge that then proves that this large and diverse validator set has come to consensus about some data being posted. And that can be verified on Ethereum. So it gives a very high assurance on Ethereum that the data was correctly posted and published. Um, and so what that means is that the verification contracts for the chain in question being, the thing that used to be a rollup, now they no longer actually check the data directly. They check the attestations of the bridge, right? And at that point, this chain, if it's a ZK chain, it becomes what's called a validium. Um, the security of the model rests on the security of the ZK proofs as well as the security of the DA system. So um, the number and diversity of the validator set and the quality of the proofs that that validator set has, is attesting that the data was correctly posted. Um, and the contrast here is with light clients. So um, this this picture, this design that we're talking about is from the point of view of Ethereum, but there are other participants to the system, and these are like, say the applications running on the end users, or other services, and they might want to also verify the chain and verify that the data was posted. um, in their case, you don't have the same kinds of constraints. Like you don't need to rely on the bridge, for example. You might be able to directly verify the chain. And what Avail provides for these other actors is, we provide an architecture that has KZG commitments for data published in Avail blocks. And we have light clients that can do data availability sampling. And so end user applications, for example, can independently verify the DA of the chain. If it's a ZK chain, which in the case of Lens it is, they're actually also able to verify the proofs of execution of the chain. So these are brand new constructions that really haven't been possible until fairly recently, and it's only because of advances in both the DA layer as well as ZK, ability to verify, compute and verify proofs quickly and things like that. Um, so the reason that this is exciting is that it really removes the bottlenecks to these chains' growth, right? So they're no longer bottlenecked by computation because that's done off chain. They're not bottlenecked by DA because that can be posted to a specialized DA layer like Avail, which can grow block space. Um, and it still allows for both verification on an L1 like Ethereum, as well as off chain from any other independent actor.
Okay. So just to follow up on that, is it okay to say, like, for so long, let's say before any kind of DA layer or Avail, the major bottleneck was, scaling through that, or like the technical barrier, or what was the technical barrier when it comes to building such solutions for, the social networks or open social networks? Because I don't think like a lot of people would knew this or understood how validiums would work or how the DAs would work. But apart from that, these were the major constraints, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I can answer this first. So I think really there's three main things that are the technical barriers for on-chain social, and these things are scale, cost, and abstraction, aka UI. Right. So the biggest technical barrier has been for years, has been the scale and cost. Now, scale with ZK solutions, they're already solving scale because if we think about Twitter, Facebook, all of these social platforms, they don't have one single server that's taking millions of requests worldwide. They have millions of servers doing located worldwide doing the actions, right? And the beauty of what ZK can give you is as long as you have the same proof system, you can scale and have many chains doing many things, which mean you can do exactly what Web2 social can do and Web2 internet can do. So we're ticking that box. In terms of cost, obviously we have Avail bringing that cost down of the DA layer without sacrificing kind of much at all. But you also have proof of aggregation stuff happening, right? We're seeing the proof of aggregation stuff, and ZK Sync are working on this, um, being able to bring down transaction costs by 10 to 20 times. When you're on a ZK chain, the most of the cost is the proof itself, which is a AWS, a GCP bill. Um, if we target more aggregation of these proofs, then we're going to get very, very cheap. And then to the point that we can get cheap as a Web2 system. As we're seeing the enhancements of AI already, we're seeing that hardware is getting better and better and better, and proofs will get better as hardware gets better and better and better. And with the AI wave, that's just going to go crazy. With that, we'll bring the costs down, and it'll be 100 times cheaper than what it is now. And obviously, that's backed by history anyway. And then if we talk about the UI um, parts of the technical barrier, it's always been, how do I do something securely and enjoy the experience? Now, if we think about the internet and everyone's on the internet right now hearing this conversation, everyone has this network box in their house and no one really understands how it works. They just plug it in, but under the hood, it's doing very, very complicated things. But it's also keeping you secure when you browse. There's encryption built into the internet, all of these things. And I think the one thing that we to be able to build the open social that people like my wife and my friends can use is this idea of abstraction. Everything good in the world has been abstracted away. Your car, the internet, your mobile phone, whatever. It's been abstracted away, but it's very complicated what is happening. So we're focusing very much on how we can make that UI experience amazing for everyone who for anyone who wants to use these social platforms, but not sacrificing the core ownership, those core essence of why we're building it. And then obviously with that, we want to be able to build beautiful on-chain social applications, signless experiences, all of these other things. But you can only do that if you abstract a lot of the complex stuff away.
This one is follow up question to you, Josh. So does this whole thing mean, um, and then please explain me again about the what kind of things that CK Sync is doing on the proof systems. But these things are not or were never possible on any kind of optimistic rollups or optimums, right?
Yes, because the problem with an optimistic roll up is they assume trust without proof. So with that, it means that optimistic roll ups cannot work side by side because there's a 7 day grace period. All of those things. With the ZK tech, it always proves. It always assumes a bad actor, right? Which means that if they're using the same proof system, you could have 1,000 of these blockchains running with the same proof system and be able to, speak to each other and validate each other's transactions without having to wait any time, basically. Which is kind of what we've got now with APIs, right? You kind of deploy your APIs everywhere, and then we have like this, Postgres database and all these things. But ultimately, that's how we scale and that's how we build scalable blockchains. One monolithic blockchain's never going to work. The way that we scale is many, but as long as they can speak to each other and trust each other instantly, then you're going to be able to scale blockchain apps.
And then final follow up because it's this is a little bit interesting conversation. Can you also tell on like how when you were saying that ZK Sync gets you 10 to 20 times cheaper cost?
Yes.
What do you mean
So
with those proofs there? Like, are they
yeah,
working on something different, or is it the same stack that you're talking about?
yeah. ZK Sync are currently working on something that they're calling proof of aggregation. So the idea of this is if you aggregate more proofs together, you're going to get a bigger saving because you're not going to have to, prove every single thing. So this is the whole idea, and there's loads of research papers about how aggregation can really, save a lot of money and bring the transaction costs down. So I know ZK Sync are working on proof of aggregation. There's probably other ZK chains working on these things. If we can start aggregating more, the cost is going to keep going down and down and down. On top of that, if the hardware is going to get cheaper and cheaper, the cost is going to go down and down and down. And I've seen a really interesting slide about AI, and it showed, just over a year or year and a half ago, to be able to generate some of these prompts on AI, we were talking 20 to 30 to 40 times the cost of what it is now. And it's only going to keep going down. And the beauty of all of this is because ZK itself is based on hardware costs, as the tackle of AI happens, kind of
Yep.
the ZK costs will also fall with it as well.
Yep. I think definitely like cost is one thing that might drop very soon. Like, we keep on seeing this in the rollup space in general, Ethereum as well, like how the gas fees has went down, but in general, the prices or the cost for any kind of data posted should will also go down. So definitely there. This takes me to another point to you, Dan, is as Josh mentioned that there are like different proof systems that zkSync is trying to work on and how to aggregate them. How do we plug in the Avail Nexus here? And then, this is just something I think a sidetracked questions from the before ones, but I just wanted to get your understanding on that as well, on how we can plug in Avail Nexus for anything that Lens might be using or any kind of zkSync chain would be using it.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, let me describe a bit like the reason for why we think Nexus is vital. Um, Basically, we've seen this explosion in rollups. You know, for several years now, the community has been working on scaling the blockchain ecosystem by creating rollups, and we talked a little bit in the earlier discussion about validiums about how that helps to scale a chain, and collectively by creating many validiums, you can scale the whole ecosystem. The small detail that is elided there is that um, each one of those chains becomes a small island of its own, and obviously that fragmentation. You can already see how painful it is for users. So if you've ever had to, bridge from one L2 to another L2, um, or and these kinds of like cross blockchain transactions become kind of a nightmare already, and we only really have a few dozen um, chains. So it's clear that that cannot continue. And so what Nexus does is Nexus allows it's kind of a verification hub for any kind of chain. And so a chain like the Lens Validium, for example, or any other chain can all be verified by the Nexus using some of this proof aggregation technology that Josh was just talking about. And so what that produces is it produces a single proof um, that is also backed by data at the TA layer. So one thing that is sometimes missed when people talk about proof aggregation is that in order to know the current state of a blockchain, like say that you want to know your balance or you just you need to know the balance of an account, you need to know that the executions were done. Like you need to know what is the current claimed state, and you need to be able to verify how did the chain get to that state. Is that a correct state transitions of the chain? But you also need to know, are these the actual state transitions that were committed to, right? Like if you go look at the DA layer, did the chain actually commit to these state transitions? Because just because a state transition is hypothetically valid doesn't mean that that's the actual transition that the chain took. Like you could be on a fork, for example. And so being able to verify the execution against the DA is crucial. Um, and the aggregation makes the first part quick, but you still need a DA layer attached to it. And so this combination, Nexus plus Avail DA is what gives you this ability to correctly determine the actual state of any rollup in the system. And so if we then build on top of that, what we enable is the ability for applications to be created that can simultaneously use functionality from different chains. And that's what allows us to get to this kind of more web 2 style of building applications. So right now, if you think about the way that we build applications on blockchains today, it's like we're living in the mainframe era of computers. Like everybody builds applications that all run on the same quote unquote machine. And the interoperability is, within the same machine is very doable, right? You can do, transaction, like one contract calls another within the same block, and so on. But if you need to talk to anything outside, it's really painful. Now you got to run cables from machine to machine and kind of work out a whole new protocol for each thing that you talk to. And so what we're trying to get to is a bit more like the current like web services era, where you have rollups that actually specialize on being able to do a particular thing really well. And they don't need, each rollup itself does not need to be a complete self-enclosed ecosystem. It can actually be really good at doing this one thing that it does. It can be a great, specialized payment rail, or a great NFT database, or whatever it is that it does. Obviously, like Josh has plans for similar things on the social space. And by connecting them through the Nexus, you can now build an application that can interact with all of this functionality without first having to bridge all of the stuff to a single place to transact on it. So you can, for example, condition the transfer on an NFT to a payment having happened on another chain, and be able to do that with complete verifiability, proofs all along, including DA checks. And so this enables this kind of more microservices type architecture, that is how many large scale services are provided today, right? When you go to Amazon and you click buy on something, it's not all running on one machine, right? Like Amazon will then contact the payment gateway, and the payment gateway will figure out how to like process your credit card and so on. So there's like a lot of asynchronous things that are happening that are then rolled up into what looks like a seamless synchronous transaction to you, but actually there's a lot of asynchronous steps behind the scenes. And for most real world applications, that is actually what you need. And so that's what the Nexus allows.
Yes, I just wanted to have people know about what Nexus is. Of course, this whole last week I've been working a little bit on like how Nexus works, learning more about it. So definitely that. Just Josh, out of curiosity, Dan mentioned that you have some kind of plans on the social side. Do you have some kind of idea on what you're thinking if it were on Nexus, or it's still you want to keep it to yourself?
Yeah, probably keep it to ourselves for now. But like what Dan said is super exciting, and I think it will unlock a lot of cool solutions. So, there's only like just like brain dumps of things at the moment. There's nothing
For
substantial,
sure.
but yeah.
For sure. I think one good thing might be on how the Lens network itself would work with, Nexus. That would be pretty cool because I
Hmm.
think there is a collect feature that we had
Yeah.
way back. I don't know, I think it's still there. So how does that payment work out? If we can add like some other kind of payment, that would be pretty cool. But it's just ideas, of course, random.
Yeah, for sure. Like anything related to like open actions, and that's like a prime feature in the protocol where you can kind of
Yep.
build whatever you want. You would be able to leverage some of that cool solution. So yeah, there's loads of cool ideas, loads of cool ideas.
For sure, open actions. Yeah, big fan of those. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely good conversation. Let's kind of move on to my next question, and this is more, for both of you is what like what are your thought process on the whole idea of open social networks, community, the social graph. I remember, like, Lens was very big on the social graph as well. How did the community respond when it comes to CK Sync move, and then, partnership with Avail using Avail TA? And then what are they looking for mostly? How does it help them and those kind of things?
Yeah. So I can kick it off. So I think look, everyone's super supportive who are building on Lens. They realize that when you're trying to build something that really doesn't exist yet, there's certain milestones you have to hit and realize, oh cool, we need this, we need this, we need this. You know, it happens worldwide. Amazon started in the garage selling books, and they transitioned to selling products all around the world. Facebook started just to be a college connection, and now it's one of the biggest social platforms ever. Right? There has to be this kind of idea of maturing up. So yeah, people are super excited. We're obviously pushing the cutting edge of this technology, and I think we kind of all realised that where we were, currently on Polygon, we we aren't going to be able to get to the place that we want to get to. We were having to make some sacrifices where we'd build the solution like Mamoka that still held your traits, but now the actual post isn't tokenized or able to be tokenized. Like when we think about the internet, it kind of shows how an open network can create innovation. The internet's the biggest thing that has ever existed, right? And anyone can create a website and deploy a website in their house without having permission from anyone. And we believe that social should be very, very similar. We believe that corporate circles where there's a single dependency cannot carry on and cannot maintain, especially something big as your social graphs. And just as people own their car, their home, as long as they're not breaking the law, they can rent their car out, they can rent their home out, and we believe that social should be very similar. Your social connections should be able to be tokenized in that way that you can do what you like with them without having to ask permission. Um, and it kind of what we're seeming like the demand from is like as when the internet came out, they people were starting to innovate and think, and for us we want to be able to build a network and a protocol that is has some solid interfaces to sculpture how you build stuff, but then you can build whatever you like in between the lines, and then let people build whatever they like, like however they want to build social they should be able to, and as long as that interface is is defined, just as http interface is defined and email interface is defined. As long as we can build this interface to then empower innovation, and then if you build it on an open social network where there's no single dependency, there's no big corporation who can close it all down and take it away from you. I think then we're going to be able to create something that hasn't seen the world yet, but people are going to be able to appreciate how amazing that is going to be. So yeah.
For sure, I think very big fan of the whole idea of, like, people should be able to build anything that they want, however they want it. And I think like Lens has come a long way in fulfilling that wish or the idea, because ever since, like, the start of Lens, the community was very supportive of people who want to build something. Your documentation, I love your docs. I think we have talked before about this as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely love your docs and all those things. Um, like follow up with Dan on what do you think about this whole idea of the social network community, or like just the on-chain social ideas.
Yeah, I think that I mean, as Josh has been saying, the barriers in the past to doing it in a decentralized way have been massive because of just the sheer number of interactions that you need to capture on chain. Things like sharing or liking or posting all of these kinds of social interactions are sort of what build up to the rich graph. And doing that on the current generation of chains is pretty difficult. I mean, I think this should be pretty obvious to anybody. Like the other day, I was trying to do some small transaction on Ethereum, and like that small transaction was, I think the estimate was like $120. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll wait. um, things like that are obviously not acceptable for building any kind of like production social application, or honestly many kind of applications just don't work with those kinds of constraints. And so this really brings it back to scalability. When I think about it from my from the infrastructure point of view, like we need to provide this infrastructure that doesn't have those kinds of you know insane volatile costs, so that applications can rely on infrastructure that is going to scale with them as they grow. um, and in the case of the DA system, this is the ability to grow block space as as more space is needed, and the ability for applications to use like clients, so that even as the DA blockchain is growing in size, applications don't have to download all of the chain. So if, for example, there's another chain that also uses Avail DA, and Lens is growing by leaps and bounds, and we have to increase our block space to account for Avail's additional traffic. Other users of Avail don't need to be impacted by that, because they can use light clients, and so they can just download the data that is important to them. So overall, the way that the DA layer is architected is all designed with this idea of removing constraints to growth. That is a key aspect that is different from the current generation of more monolithic chains out there. The current chains are all constrained in their ability to grow, in that the current participants of the chain, either the validators, the full nodes, the applications that use the chain, all of these participants actually aren't incentivized to grow the chain because of some constraint. And so this is the key thing that DA layers bring, that we have thought through with Avail, is that we are confident that all of the participants of the chain are okay with the chain growing, right? There's no barriers to growth. I'm super excited to see what Lens will be able to build on top of our infra.
I would also say, like, one other thing, which is like, I think people forget when the internet came out. If we look back just at, say 2000, right? To be able to get a terabyte on disk, it cost you about $7,000. To get a terabyte of memory, it cost you over $1 million, right? This is, 2000, right? If we go back to 1980s, we're talking 600 million for a terabyte of disk and 13 billion for, some like memory, right? And we're sitting, and solid state drives weren't even invented till 2013, and we're sitting today to be able to have that same terabyte on disk for $11, and that same memory, 1 terabyte of memory, for $1,000. So I think, when we think about how we compare the blockchain to stuff, it's very in line with how we compare the internet when it first created. And with these, costs going down, I really do see the same transition for blockchains, where we would look back in 5 years and go, gosh, okay, that was 200, 300, 400 times the cost, and could only scale 1,000 times less than what we can now. And it's a really good comparison to compare. When you look at the historical price of computer memory and storage, you really go, okay, I can see a trend here.
Yeah, 100%. It's all about the ability to have this trend that is, trending down for cost. So I think that's the key. That's what, when we design these systems, we design them so that we know, like, what is the path to make it cheaper, to get economies of scale.
Yeah, I think most of these ideas make sense. I still have like this weird question to you guys both. Maybe you can help me understand, and other people as well. And just just for the just for the heads up, we still have good 15 minutes or so. But yeah, one of the questions that I had, like that I got from the whole conversation, is that we are posting data to lens sorry to Avail, and then we have like lens network and all those different things. um what is being posted, if you were to like give some kind of pointers to the audience? Is it the likes that people do, follows? How does the posting work? What is exactly being posted? Yeah, probably I think more pointers to that.
Yes. So on the actual contracts, when you're posting, when you're commenting, when you're um, doing any of those things, they are actually on-chain transactions. Reactions itself are off-chain transactions, because at the moment like when Elon Musk does a tweet, he gets 100,000 likes, and realistically, do you need to own your likes? But we're working on a system where we can put that metadata somewhere else and still have the core ownership. And then, because it's the Validium, um, all of the like all of the transaction data itself is stored in the Validium itself, and then the transaction va- validity and state updates are then posted to Avail, so then anyone can verify them, basically.
So, sorry, I want to understand more because I kind of like this conversation. So, what is going on in this transaction? Like, my question is like, if I upload a picture, right? Where does it stay in Lens ecosystem, some
Mhm.
server or some Avail? Where does it stay? Or if I like your post, or if I retweet it, I think we
Yeah,
used to call it mirror. So where do these actions go?
yeah. So we need to like disconnect two of these things. So,
Mhm.
uh, posting your images and your content, a lot of the time that's done based on the client. So it's IPFS or something like that. We are currently working on a solution that's going to make that even nicer. And then the actual contract itself stores your connections. So who I follow, it stores your posts with the metadata link, which is stored off chain. So all your connections and all of your posts are all on chain, but the actual images and metadata are depending on where the client uploads it. That's one thing that hasn't been solved yet, where we have these NFTs that are worth millions of dollars, but you realize that the actual storage, that the actual thing that people care about, is sitting on an S3 bucket that they could just delete and then everything's disappeared, right? So
Yep.
we're currently working on that aspect as well. And we will release, you'll hear more about that very, very soon on how we're going to change the game on that part.
Okay. No, this is a very interesting convo because a lot of time like people are confused on when they see like these partnerships, like a DA and a decentralized social media, and they're like, okay, but what is being posted to the DA? So I think it's a good conversation over there. Dan, you have any thoughts there?
Yeah. So it's hard to distill into like a single soundbite, but um, as Josh said, you have these different applications that have a variety of different actions that you can take, and some of those, might be like uploading a picture to IPFS or something like that. But there's a Validium, which is a chain, right? And this chain has a set of contracts on it that governs a certain number of transactions that can be taken. And then this chain um, produces a like when it produces new states, it writes a state diff to Avail. So what Avail has is Avail gives anybody the ability to verify that this Validium chain is posting the correct state diffs that match the state that they claim. So because it's a Validium, it has ZK proofs. So you can verify the zk proof and verify that the data is on Avail, and that gives you the confidence that you can trust the state that it says. When it says, Dan has whatever it is, 1,000 followers, then like that you can trust what the values of these contracts. um I'll just note that that is not the only way to use a DA system. Like, a DA system is completely agnostic to what the data is. This is actually one of the central things about why DA systems are scalable. Is that the validators of the Avail chain, um, they don't actually care what the data is. They just guarantee that it's published correctly. Like, whatever it is that's sent to it gets published, and then it can be verified to be whatever was posted. And what this allows is it allows a variety of different kinds of designs. So this Validium design is one such design, but this is a very modular approach, that if you think about it, it's allowing the it's allowing these chains that use the DA layer to iterate on their own. So if you rewind to like before the rollup explosion, the
Hmm.
way that you would prototype some of these ideas, say that you want to prototype a zk chain or you want to prototype some idea, is like you kind of just have to build the whole thing. Like, you have to build a new one, recruit a validator set, like get everything together, launch your own token. Like, it's a whole ton of stuff that you need to build in order to build a new chain. And what this modular approach now gives you, with the advent of you know chain stacks that are separable with modular DA layers like Avail, is that you can build these pieces and iterate on them without having to rebuild the entire ecosystem every time.
Yep.
And so that really enables a much higher speed of innovation, because what used to be, it used to take years to launch an L1. Like, now you can launch a chain very quickly and just rely on the, as we've said, like, very solid, diverse validator set that Avail gives you for DA. And so different chains can make different trade-offs, and different applications can make different trade-offs as they use these chains. So it's a sorry, I'm taking like a very infrastructure point of view to the question.
No, no, no,
But
that's
I just
good.
want to
Yeah.
point out that there's like a lot of flexibility and choices about how these pieces can fit together to provide like a wide range of experiences to end users.
Yeah, I think I really like the idea where you said like um the devs or builders don't need to spin up everything, from the scratch so that it speeds up the innovation, which is, I think, really something that people need to understand on how we have come up or so far along. But definitely, like, these ideas are great. So I think we're on, 10 more minutes out. We have almost 6,700 active listeners right now in the podcast, which is, very big number. Um, so I'll have a last question for you guys, or probably like, one more follow up, because this is a nice conversation. How does the dev community look like for Lens and Avail? My question mainly is like, Lens have so many builders, they have so many OSS devs, or like open source devs. I know Nilesh very closely, like, we talked a lot before, who's building ARP on Lens, and then there's Hey, so they're like dev for Hey. So what is like, dev community look like from the Lens perspective, and how are other things getting built in the ecosystem? And then the same question for you, Dan, later on how the Avail ecosystem is working out, what are the builders doing, that kind of question.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, all pay fantastic to clients that are built on Lens. The first fact is that us at Avara, how we don't build or maintain a client. All the clients have been built from scratch from other people, which is amazing. This whole concept of corporate control stems from that. We have very diverse clients that you can go and do what you want. Like, you have a diverse set of wallets and all of these other aspects, a diverse set of browsers, a diverse set of computers, that's really important in open social, because the UI is where you dictate and you transact, so at the moment, like, a lot of these apps are trying to, make their product have unique selling point. I think a lot of the apps, when they first started building on Lens, because we supply really good developer docs, a really great API, a really great SDK. We abstract all of the complex stuff away from all of the builders so they can just build. When we first started, people were just thinking, oh, I can build, Twitter again and Twitter again. But I think what these builders are starting to realize is there needs to be some unique selling point for their application. Like Lens itself is a set of primitives, a set of guidelines, and a tool set to be able to empower social or in any direction that you want, just as the internet is there to power however you want to, connect or, build a website or do whatever you want to do on the internet, right? And, it's really great to start seeing some of these builders go off in their own direction, Hey is, founded by a 21-year-old, and he builds most of the stuff himself, which is great. And he's going down a different direction. You've got Orb, of course, fantastic application. They are building their own features and going off, doing what they think makes sense for social. And this is what we really, really want to see. And on top of that, obviously, now that we're going to be a network, it opens the power of what else can be built with social. If we think about transacting, banking, all of these things. Even when I'm sending money to my friend, it's still social that I'm doing it. I'm sending money from here to my friend, and we've seen some banking apps start integrating social features and stuff like that. But now that we're going to have a protocol, we're going to probably see more marketplaces, more dexes, more other aspects where then you can put a flair of social in there as well. So we're really, really excited to see what is going to be built on, Lens V3, and we're already really excited with what's currently built on Lens V2. So yeah, no, that's probably, yeah.
One thing I really, remember from the early days of Lens is that it was also a very live and public feedback. So, like a lot of people, let's say, who are contributing to Hey, they were getting the feedback in real time. Same for probably Orb, right?
Yep, yep.
So that was like really very interesting to me. People get the feedback, and then the devs implement that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Like we have lens improvement plans, and we have, we build stuff and then give it to the developers straight away. So there's a really good communication between like the core team and the clients that are building it. Which is great. So yeah.
For sure. Yeah, definitely love the, dev community. I've been in the Telegram group for a long time, and I see it like active even now. So definitely a lot of people building there.
Yeah.
Dan, do you want to go next on like, how does the whole community look like, or, how Avail can support the builders or the devs
Yep,
and the
yep,
founders?
totally. Yeah, a lot of what Josh said resonates with me as well. I think we are very aligned on the way that we want to support, the wider Web3 community in general. Um, we also see ourselves, providing this core network that we want is very modular. We want people to be building in different ways. So we see, a variety of stacks being supported on Avail, and we are working with, a lot of different kinds of builders that want to build networks using those stacks, to build their own applications, their own, um, yeah, their own ideas on Avail. And of course, it's permissionless, but we're always here to help. And these range from optimistic chains to ZK chains. We've talked a lot about ZK chains here, but there's a lot of teams building on optimistic stacks as well. And then we're, with things like the Nexus, like we can offer to link these together. But these are of course opt-in. So these are things that builders decide how they use these modular tools that are being offered. Um, of course, we focus a lot on documentation and SDKs, and how we provide our support to builders directly through Discord and Twitter and Telegram, and how wherever builders are, we want to be there, and we want to help people realize whatever whatever they dream to build. Um, so yeah, super excited from an infrastructure point of view. It's really exciting to see people actually build out like great user experiences on the infrastructure.
Yeah, I think I just want to add like one last thing for Avail perspective is like if anyone is building, what I know is like we support them 100%, be it marketing, be it like, some integration issues, some tech issues. We try to help them as much as possible. So definitely like looking for those builders. Final thing for you guys, how can someone, because we're almost out of time, how can someone reach out to you, build on Lens if they want to? How can someone reach out to Dan or anyone else at Avail? Of course they can text me, but anything else, any pointers that you have or closing thoughts?
Yeah, so from our side, we put a lot of time in our developer docs, as you mentioned before, right? We really believe that really great developer docs can allow people to just find their problem without human communication. Obviously, we are here to help, of course, and we have Discord and Telegram and all of those channels. But the best documentations in the world have it all in there, so we can direct people to it. If we miss a question that someone asks us, we'll then add it to the documentation. Yeah, so we have Discord, Telegram, and then our documentation should be the place if you want to build, and should have everything there for you.
Yeah, very much the same for us. We have developer docs, we have Discord, we have Telegram. I'm on Twitter as well. My notifications tab is a bit of a mess, but I will hopefully see your message if you message me. And then other Avail members are also on X, and yeah, we're around. Please contact us.
Okay. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I think I really enjoyed this conversation. One of the most interesting ones that I've had in a while. We have crossed 7,148. Now it's 50, so it's just people keep coming in. But we'll be ending this session or like this podcast. But anyway, Josh, thanks a lot for coming in. I think it was a really good talk. Dan, thank you for taking out time from your busy schedule. I know you're busy, especially like, following up on so many different things. But yeah, thank you guys.
And thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Josh.
hosting. And
Yep.
thanks, Dan, as well. Brilliant
Yep.
conversation, guys. I'm excited to work with you guys for the future. It's going to be awesome.
For
Likewise.
sure.
Pumped.
Sure.
It's going to be awesome. Have a great night, guys. Thank you very much.
You too. Bye
See
bye.
you later. Bye bye.